is retiring after 2 terms. He also served in the U.S. House and was a state senator. His retirement is the second Michigan senator in 2 years, and it leaves the highly sought-after seat open. Open U.S. Senate seats are relatively rare when you consider before Peters was elected, Senator Carl Levin held the seat for 36 years. When Senator Debbie Stabenow retired, she'd been in that office for 24 years. It was just 2 years ago when former Congressman Mike Rogers and Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin battled for the right to fill the vacancy left by Stabenow. Slotkin narrowly won that race by 19,000 votes out of more than 5.5 million votes cast. This year, the race will once again feature Rogers, who is unopposed on the Republican ticket. For Democrats, there are 2 candidates remaining in the race, and you'll hear from both of them on this program. First up is Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. El-Sayed previously ran for governor of Michigan. He served as health director for the city of Detroit and later Wayne County. He attended the University of Michigan, Columbia University, and Oxford. He talks about why he is running and how he would approach the job if he is successful in his bid to become the Democratic nominee. I want to go back to the Democratic convention because it was one of the best attended, if not the best attended ever. And to a large degree, that was your crowd. I mean, there was a lot of support there for you. You have run before, you know what this is like. Why does this time, at least from my perspective, why does this go around feel different?
You know, when I ran last time, I said something that folks weren't quite ready to hear, which is that Donald Trump is not himself the disease of our politics. He's just the worst symptom of the disease. The disease is the system that allows big corporations, billionaires, special interests to buy and sell politicians in ways that leave them rigging the system against us. We pay more for the stuff we got to buy, get paid less for the work that we do, watch our tax dollars get misappropriated abroad to drop bombs on other people rather than invest in schools and healthcare for our own. And I think 8 years on, that message is just resonating even more. We've come through a number of crises. Things have gotten more expensive. People feel like their jobs are less secure than they have been. And I think they recognize the truth in that message. And the question to us is, what do we do about it now? And we're offering an opportunity to think differently in our politics. I'm the only candidate in the race who's never taken a dime of corporate money to run a campaign and never will. I'm the only candidate in the race who has the courage to run to guarantee healthcare or to say that we just got to abolish ICE because it's unconstitutional what they're doing right now. And I think people are resonating with that, and they're recognizing that there really is an opportunity to either pick politics as usual or politics is different. And people desperately want politics is different right now.
One of the things that everybody talks about during this campaign is affordability, and everything costs more. And our wages haven't gone up to meet those rising costs. There are lots of factors, including, as you were just talking about dropping bombs. Our activities in Iran have certainly contributed to fuel prices. Fuel prices contribute to almost everything, but the housing crisis has been here long before that started, and it's still very difficult for people to get into that first home. What are the approaches we can use to start making things affordable for normal everyday Americans to actually make ends meet?
Yeah, so a lot of people talk about the what. They say affordability, but they don't tell you why affordability. Why do we have a housing crisis? Well, because back in 2008, the big banks got greedy. They never were held accountable. We stopped building the homes we needed, and now people are saying, where's the housing that I need to raise a family? You think about our gas prices. We're dropping bombs over there. Why? Because weapons manufacturers and AIPAC want us to go to wars that we shouldn't be fighting, and now we're all spending $5 a gallon. I paid $82.89 to fill up my Jeep on Memorial Day, thinking about the people we lost in a war we never should have fought. And so it starts with corporate accountability. Corporations should not be able to buy politicians to do their bidding, to allow them to go to wars, to allow them to get away when they cause a banking and now a housing crisis. But then right now, we also have laws on the books that allow us to stand up to the likes of the trusts, frankly, the monopolies and oligopolies that are raising prices on everything. So just one example. Memorial Day, a lot of people like to cook out, right? You get some steaks. A lot of people were priced out of steaks, so they got some burgers. Some people were priced out of burgers, so they got some hot dogs. Maybe you got all three. There are 4 meat packers that control 70, 80% of the entire industry. And then they use these algorithms to raise prices on you. We have antitrust laws on the books. We just don't enforce them. And maybe if we did, we could do something about the exorbitant price of meat. And it's the same story across the board. The second thing I'll tell you is this. There is no coincidence that we have more billionaires and less unions now. Unions They built the middle class. They built the 40-hour work week. They built the fact that we have weekends. They built the fact that our kids go to school instead of going to work. And we can have nice things again. We can protect our jobs again, but we're going to need to empower unions against the likes of big corporations.
You've talked a couple of times about not taking any corporate money. Would you be in favor of abolishing corporate money in any form in the political system?
Absolutely, 100% yes. That is one of my biggest goals. When I say money out of politics, that's exactly what I mean. I want people to make their decision, not because a big corporation or a special interest dropped $6 million of ads last week, which actually happened in this race for one of my opponents. I want them to make their decisions based on the ideas of the candidates. Come watch the debates that Rick Albin hosts. Come meet people in their town halls. That's how democracy is supposed to work. It's not supposed to work because a corporation writes you a big PAC check and then use that money to build 30-second ads that then mis and disinform the public. So yes, absolutely, I would like to abolish that in our politics. I'd like to abolish super PACs and 527s and 501c4s, all ways that corporations launder their money into our political process.
As I mentioned, you ran for governor before, and you've seen what this is like statewide. How does this time around, knowing that this is an open U.S. Senate seat, that it's not just an open U.S. Senate seat, it could be for control of the United States Senate. How do you approach this, knowing how important this race is?
I think people want somebody who has been about the issues they talk about every single day. I've been in public service now for the better part of 10 years. I started my career in public service as Detroit's health director, rebuilding a health department to put glasses on kids, take on big corporate polluters. I led Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. We provided free health insurance for new small businesses, put Narcan in 100 locations, eliminated upwards of $700 million of medical debt. My job is to take what I've learned serving the public for the past 10 years and build that into a message that is clean and simple about what the problems are and how we solve it. Get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, pass Medicare for all. And then to go everywhere and talk to everyone, whether it's Fox News or rallying with Twitch streamers or talking to you or coming here, which I don't have much business here except for the debate about what we can do. But we want to get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, pass Medicare for all. On the way up here, we had 2 packed town halls. On the way down, we're going to do another 4. But that's how you campaign. And so I'm not worried as much about the horse race of this. I'm worried that people know who I am, what I fight for, and what I want to do for them. And I believe in my message. And so I'm just going to take it everywhere, talk about it, say the same things to everybody, and let's see where it goes. But that's what democracy is supposed to be. And I think the party lost track of that a long time ago. We're so busy trying to have backroom conversations and take money from here to run ads over there. And you forgot that actually, if you have to pick between corporate money and a message, pick a message. And that's what we're doing.
When we come back, you'll meet another candidate who wants to represent you in Washington, D.C. We'll be right back. We continue with the two Democrats running for the open U.S. Senate seat in Michigan. To put a finer point on just what hangs in the balance with this race, there are currently 53 Republicans serving in the U.S. Senate, 45 Democrats and 2 independents that caucus with and often vote with Democrats. As a practical matter, the division is more like 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats or Democrat-leaning members in the Senate. There are a handful of states that will decide who controls the chamber in January. Perhaps Maine, North Carolina, maybe Ohio, even some question about Texas, but most analysts and both major parties consider Michigan one of, if not the most competitive in the country. Our final Democratic candidate for the party's nomination is Congresswoman Haley Stevens. She's currently serving her 4th term in the U.S. House and previously served on President Obama's task force on the auto industry. She's also worked as a digital design director and attended American University. She shared with us her priorities as this race unfolds. Representative, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things you've been talking about and your campaign. Recently, you said there were 4 really major issues. There are a lot of issues. But
Sure.
4 major pillars that you're building this campaign on, and one of them is lowering costs.
Yeah.
And there's nobody that's watching this that wouldn't agree that costs need to be lowered. What can you do?
So, federal lawmaker running for the chief lawmaking role for the state of Michigan in the U.S. Senate. I've got day one legislation to lower the cost of groceries. I actually have a bill called No Tariffs on Groceries because blanket tariffs on imported food raise those prices. You know, here we are at Brooklyn Bodega, this incredible business owner. She's telling me all about, you know, how everyone loves their, you know, beef cheese sandwich here that they've got, but the cost of tomatoes are now up. The other thing is we know in Michigan, we've got this incredible manufacturing sector, a lot of craftsmanship and talent that comes through here. But our supply chain still has way too much dependency on China. And so I've got legislation to strengthen our supply chain here in Michigan, bring jobs back. And with that, you're lowering costs because you're not paying for the shipping coming in from China for those critical goods.
One of the things that you incorporated in that is another one of the things that you were here last year, almost a year ago, and we were down at the motorcycle manufacturing plant.
That's
here.
right.
And you were even then talking about building it in Michigan, getting it done here. What do you do to maintain, retain, and expand the manufacturing base that has been such a critical part of Michigan's economy?
Yeah. Well, I think the advocacy and the leadership that we deserve, that Michigan deserves in the U.S. Senate, is about focusing on the consistency, certainty for businesses. You know, they can't wake up every other day to another trade rule or another tariff. You know, we had 55 tariff announcements in 100 days. And that really caused things to go out of whack, you know, here in the west side of our state, certainly, you know, in the east side. And then you see it up in the UP, you know, with small business revenues being down. A trade war with Canada, that doesn't work. So those are the complaints. But the solutions about how to do 21st century industrial policy, these are things that I have led on that I want to continue to lead on. I have visited nearly 200 rather. I visited nearly 200 unique small businesses, manufacturers primarily, mom and pop shops, multi-generational. And the one thing that I've seen is that, yes, they need, you know, the good rules of the road, but they need a tax program that works for them. You know, when you're investing in the R&D of your business, you know, being able to have the tax code that meets you where you're at. If you're training workers, again, a tax code that meets you where you're at. And this is also why we want to have, you know, 21st century workforce strategies, things that I've been long working on and accomplishing for Michigan on the Education and Labor Committee.
When you think about some of the pressures, you talked about that trade war with Canada, and that's resulted in Canada allowing a lot of Chinese vehicles to be brought in up there, which is something that we heard a lot of concerns about recently up on Mackinac Island. I mean, what do we have to do to get that relationship rebuilt? And I know as a U.S. Senator, it's not your job, but it's got to be a concern.
Yeah, and I think back to even my time working on the U.S. Auto Rescue, and that deal wouldn't have gotten done without our friends from Canada and their commitment to the auto industry and their investments. And so Look, we need better trade relationships. We should be working with Canada to take on China, not pushing them into our hands. Let that Gordie Howe Bridge open, for the love of God. That's another international bridge crossing. And Donald Trump has said he wants to keep it closed. He doesn't want to open it. And then Mike Rogers says he agrees with that. Well, all those small businesses and automotive suppliers, defense, aerospace, they're hurting as a result of that. And then the workers are wondering, what the heck? What are we supposed to do, with those, jobs just being left on the line? You got 1,000 people out of work on Cleveland Cliffs. Here in West Michigan, same thing. We want to be working, to protect our Great Lakes and working cohesively with our trade partners, particularly the one that's right next door to us, that accounts for Michigan jobs, that bolsters our economy. And so it's not just enough to have, a few good conversations. I have worked on legislation for our bridges. I worked on that second bridge for a long time. And I also helped us renegotiate NAFTA to strengthen the Buy American content pieces so we could grow our jobs here in Michigan, but not turn Canada into an enemy.
Let's talk about one of the industries that we're right in the middle of. Just down at the end of the street, there's a big hospital complex. Just up on the hill, there's an entire mile of medical research and care and all different kinds of facilities. And the one thing they all have in common is that people struggle to pay for health care. They struggle to be able to access some of the best health care in the country that can be found right here. I know that's a concern of yours. How do you approach it?
Yeah, I think that we have got to build on the promise, and we have to achieve universal health care for every American, every Michigander. And what that means is affordable, quality, accessible health care. I think Michiganders need more options. I think we are overdue for the public option in our healthcare system. I've long supported that. I believe we need to lower the Medicare age. I'm on legislation to do that. Of course, make the tax subsidies permanent. Make these insurance companies pay their fair share, and pay a little bit more while their, profits are getting lined by denials. That's not right. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And then I was really proud to cap insulin, the price of insulin for older Michiganders at $35 a month. Let's do that for everybody. And let's do that with a multitude of drugs. We just can't see people getting shut out and priced out of their health care. And of course, you feel it on Medical Mile, and we're thrilled with the innovations that come through here, the talent that we have here in West Michigan. There's, biotech research happening here, great partnerships with universities. But with those biotech innovations, people need to be able to access them, and that comes with affordability.
We'll be right back. Brandon Dillon is a former state representative and former chair of the Michigan Democratic Party. And first of all, thank you for coming in. I thought it was important to talk to you and get your perspective as somebody who has been a member of the legislature, somebody who has been in charge of the party. How important are primary elections? And as we prepare for this debate, how important are these moments as your party is going to select a candidate for an open U.S. Senate seat?
Yeah, well, I think your first question about how important the primary debates, or excuse me, the primary itself is right on point. This is a hugely important primary. The United States Senate is in play this year, and whoever the Democratic nominee is going to have a real heck of a race in November against Mike Rogers. So the winner of this primary is going to be the standard bearer, and whoever comes out of it is going to have to come out strong and be able to unite the Democratic Party and the base to take on a formidable candidate on the other side.
If memory serves me, in your time as chairman, you were pretty successful in having candidates that didn't have primaries, which there is a certain advantage to that because there are things said in primaries that can't be unsaid in the general. But there is also the other school of thought that a robust primary can really kind of strengthen candidates as they move into the general. Is there a preference from your standpoint?
Yeah, look, you can make good arguments on either side. I think the reality is we have a robust primary. And I think for the foreseeable future, you're going to have robust primaries up and down the ticket, whether it's for United States Senate, governor, or even down here to state rep. You've got different visions of the party. You've got folks kind of represented by Abdul El-Sayed who are looking to make significant changes to the party, particularly its leadership. You have other candidates like Haley Stevens, who's I think wants to make change, but might not, represents a little bit more of kind of the establishment part of the party. So there's going to be those fights that come up. I think the important thing for Democrats is that people keep it to issues, positions, policies, beliefs, and not get personal and really focus on what's important, which is going to be winning the seat in November.
Yeah, and as you point out, that's going to be quite a race because we already know that Mike Rogers has an established campaign mechanism out there. He came within that close
yes.
2 years ago, but there are some changes. Donald Trump is not on the ballot, at least his name is not on the ballot. And so that may make some change for Republicans. But when it comes right down to it, this isn't just about representing Michigan, although that's the most important part. This is about control of the United States Senate.
Yeah, it's a national race. Yeah. I mean, gone are the days when sleepy Michigan Senate races really didn't mean much except to the people in Michigan. This race and a handful of others around the country are going to determine control of the United States Senate. And for Democrats, and I think for independents and some others as well, making a strong message to put a check on Donald Trump and his presidency is something that's very important. So this seat is going to be I'm sure there's going to be all eyes on the debate here around the country here, Rick, and there's going to be all eyes on the race here from now until that first Tuesday in November.
You know, we have had in this state a long tenured set of senators with Carl Levin, who was there for 36 years, Senator Debbie Stabenow there for 24 years. And now all of a sudden, we're going to have a 2-year senator who will be the senior senator from Michigan. I mean, that's unusual for us.
It's very unusual.
And so this all kind of happens as the Senate is in play. And as you pointed out, and I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but the Democratic Party is kind of heading in two different directions at the same time. You have, as you pointed out, the establishment wing and the more progressive wing. And that can have a big impact 2 years from now, right?
Sure, absolutely. Look, you're seeing in the Democratic Party, I think, what you saw in the Republican Party back in 2009 and 2010. There's folks who are dissatisfied with the status quo, and the way that they're trying to impact that change is by putting up candidates in key races to try to move the needle, reform the party, but also enact some policies that are more in line with their agenda, and you're going to have pushback on that because, Michigan is a purple state. A lot of the folks that you've seen elected on the really progressive agendas have come from deep blue districts in New York and in California and in other places. It remains to be seen if that's going to be an effective strategy in a state like Michigan, but I certainly think we're going to find out here in about 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the other part of that is that in Michigan, if you're a Democrat or if you're a Republican, you still have to rely on that chunk in the middle that is neither. to get elected. I mean, that's what makes us a purple state. So the question is, how do you appeal to the center to get to your, to your goal of winning? And that will be part of the challenge, no matter who the nominee is.
Absolutely. And I think it's pretty clear what the issues that voters care about this year: affordability, the cost of things, a dissatisfaction with the way the economy is going, with the war in Iran and gas prices. So I think any Democrat who gets nominated has a compelling message. The question is going to be, are you going to be able to appeal to those independents who in Michigan are the ones who determine elections? We have about an even split between Democrats and Republicans in this state, and if they both come out at equal rates, you're at a draw. You got to have folks that swing elections from cycle to cycle to be able to believe in what you're doing and not get too far outside of the kind of policies and programs that they could support. It has to be, it can be progressive, but it can't be so far out of the mainstream that you're going to alienate the people that decide elections in November.
Which is part of the problem with a primary in the first place, because sometimes to appeal to the party faithful, you have to run one side or the other. Depending, if you're a Democrat, you may run a little to the left. If you're a Republican, you may run a little to the right. But when it comes to the general election, and it's not unique to Michigan, but Michigan is certainly kind of emblematic of what it takes. You have to be able to get to those independents because the parties are about 33-33, right? In that neighborhood?
There's no doubt. And I think the independent share of the slice of the electorate is expanding. People are frustrated with what they see in Washington, and then they see things in Lansing not getting done the way they want. It just breeds dissatisfaction with the system. But independents are the ones that are going to make their votes based on the candidate. They're going to make their votes based on the policies that candidate is talking about. And history is clear in Michigan. You win the independent vote, you win. Now, you can win the race without winning independents if the turnout in your party is much higher than the other. But if I was, a betting man, I would bet that the independents are going to end up deciding this in November, and whoever the nominee is going to have has to have a compelling message that appeals to them, not just the base that gets into the primary.
You have a unique perspective. You run for and won in elections. You've served as a party chairman. How do you think Michigan politics has changed in the past 20 years that you and I have known each other?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I mean, I think the issues are pretty much the same that we talk about. It's taxes, it's who's going to get what at the expense of who, it's education. But, social media, and I think a lot of the incentives for legislators at the federal and state level have changed. You don't have a lot of the gatekeepers like yourself around anymore. Local media isn't as robust as it used to be, especially covering politics. So I think it's difficult. I think people are more independent actors as legislators and Congress people. They have their own brand. They don't have to rely on the party. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to get a cohesive band of folks together to be able to advance certain objectives. But it's not impossible. It's a change. But, there's folks that are doing it well and folks that are learning how to do it. And hopefully, at the end of the day, what's important is actually delivering for people and making their lives a little bit better. And hopefully those candidates will talk about that in your debate tonight.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Rick.
Thanks for watching, and stick with your local election headquarters as we follow this and all the important races right through November.
serve our local community like Gerald Ford did.
I want roads fixed.
Working for things that are positive for Michigan.
Tonight, night one of Debate Week. An open U.S. Senate seat. 2 candidates. 2 visions for Michigan. Abdul El-Sayed.
There really is an opportunity to either pick politics as usual or politics is different. And people desperately want politics is different right now.
U.S. Representative Haley Stevens.
I see this as a made-in-Michigan moment, and we have a story to tell, and we need a champion in the United States Senate.
Who earns the chance to carry the Democratic banner into one of the most consequential Senate races in the country? The choice is yours. Live from the WOOD TV studios in Grand Rapids and your local election headquarters. This is night one of Debate Week in Michigan, Democratic Senate primary.
Good evening. I'm Rick Albin, your moderator for tonight's debate, along with Amber Kriska, who will be here with viewer questions. Candidates, welcome to you and welcome to viewers across the state watching here on WOOD TV, our sister station, WLNS in Lansing, and partners in Detroit, Marquette, Alpena, Traverse City, and Flint. This truly is Debate Week in Michigan. Here's a quick review of the rules. Each question goes to each candidate for a 60-second response in an order determined by a drawing earlier in this process. A 30-second rebuttal will follow after each candidate has given their initial response. The only possible change to that would be for the final question. Depending on how much time is left in the program, we may eliminate the rebuttal or adjust the length of time to answer the question. There is no opening statement. There will be a 60-second closing. It is time for our first question in Debate Week in Michigan. Again, welcome to both of you. The first question will go to you, sir. The number one issue facing people from coast to coast and right here in Michigan is no surprise. It's inflation, it's affordability. Everything costs too much. You can't fix it all. But if you're elected to the U.S. Senate, tell me one proactive thing you would do to make Michiganders' lives more affordable. 60 seconds, sir.
I've been up and down my state, 110 different cities, 450 public events. No matter where I go, people say the same thing. I just can't afford to live here anymore. I'm so worried about the price of groceries. I can't afford my gas. It's $5. I'm worried about getting sick because I can't afford my deductible. There's a number of things we need to do. Number one, we need to tackle healthcare by guaranteeing everybody healthcare without a deductible, a premium, or a copay through Medicare for All. Number two, we need to stand up to the monopolies and oligopolies that are picking our pockets. Number three, we need to stand up to increase wages. And that means standing with unions like the UAW and the nurses who've endorsed us. It means making sure that we are standing with Michiganders in their moments of crisis by making schools somewhere that our kids can go, by addressing the potholes that cause punctured tires every time you try to drive anywhere. But all of this has to happen by way of getting the corruption out of our politics. So long as corporations are buying politicians, we can't actually enact these solutions because they're getting the policies that they signed up for when they pay for their politicians.
Congresswoman Stevens, 60 seconds, please.
Well, thank you so much, WOOD TV, and to everyone across Michigan tuning in tonight. As your next United States Senator, I will run through anyone and anything to lower costs. My no tariff on groceries bill. My bill to lower your utility bill. Look, I'm the only person running for United States Senate in Michigan who is not a millionaire. I am not trying to sell a book or a podcast. I'm the only one on this stage who doesn't have a talent agent trying to pitch me for paid speeches. And unlike my opponent, I'm not running at the first mic or camera I see. Instead, my head is down doing the work for the people of Michigan who need the work to be done. We do not need a celebrity senator. We need a workhorse. And as the most effective lawmaker for Michigan in the House of Representatives, if you want a fighter and an effective leader for our state, that's me.
Dr. El-Sayed, 30
We also
seconds.
don't need politicians bought off by corporations. In this race, you've probably seen ad after ad after ad. Not one of those ads was brought to you by the Congresswoman's campaign. All of them brought to you by corporate PACs and APAC, trying to buy a politician who's going to do their bidding instead of yours. That's been the story of our politics for far too long. The question is not whether or not you're a millionaire. The question is whether or not you are bowing down to billionaires. And for too long in our politics, we've watched politicians beg for those dollars only to do that bidding when they actually get to office. That has been the story of my opponent. If you want politics is different, I'm the only one who's never taken a dime from a corporation.
Congresswoman, 30 seconds.
Well, look, transparency is oh so important. And this is why I have released my tax returns. My opponent, Abdul, he said that transparency is key, but yet he hasn't released his tax returns. Abdul, you talk about getting money out of politics and putting money in people's pockets, but who is putting money in yours? What are you hiding?
Moving to our next question, it'll be first to you, Congresswoman, with a 60-second response. The Trump administration had been negotiating an agreement to end the conflict in Iran, but within the last hour, we are told that the United States military has launched a series of what they call powerful strikes after commercial ships were struck in the Strait of Hormuz. The question is, what should our policy be going forward with Iran? 60 seconds.
Well, our next United States Senator has one mission and one mission only, and that is to fight for the people of Michigan and represent the people of Michigan's interests. Donald Trump selling us out to this war in Iran that no one asked for, that is raising costs for every Michigander, is totally unacceptable. But here's the deal. In terms of the goal that I have long fought for and pushed for in the United States House of Representatives and what I will work for in the United States Senate, we need long-term peace. Donald Trump has failed us. The Prime Minister of Israel has failed in that regard. And he was just coming after me on this today. Look, I am unafraid, Michigan. You are my North Star, and no illegal wars, no unilateral wars at our expense.
60 seconds.
I think it's worth asking why we got into this war in the first place. There is one man who's been wanting this war fought, and that is the Prime Minister of Israel. And the reason that we've seen this war fought is because the impact of AIPAC in our politics. AIPAC has spent tens of millions of dollars in attack ads against me or ads lying about the Congresswoman's record. They clearly want one individual, and it's not me. And ask yourself why it is that we are paying $5 gas, why it is we can't seem to get out of this quagmire. It's because for too long, our foreign policy has been handed to us by the likes of the State of Israel and AIPAC, who has made sure that Democrats and Republicans are doing their bidding. I don't take that money. They are spending against me because they've called me the most dangerous candidate for the U.S.-Israel relationship, because maybe I don't want to waste our money fighting wars we don't need to spend, and instead I want that spent here to rebuild our schools here, to make sure we have functional infrastructure here in Michigan, to make sure that we have healthcare here in Michigan. And so long as our politicians continue to be bought off by AIPAC, do not be surprised when we fight wars that are in their best interest, to annex Israel, to annex Lebanon, or to do genocide in Gaza.
Congresswoman, 30 seconds.
Well, Abdul, I would say no one is afraid of you. And in fact, the GOP is spending thousands of dollars to prop up your campaign because they think they will make it easier for Mike Rogers to win if you are the nominee. I do not plan to make anything easier for Republicans or Mike Rogers. What I do is I take on tough fights for Michigan, tough races, and I win for us.
30 seconds to wrap up this question.
Well, you know, if Congresswoman Stevens makes it or Mike Rogers wins, either way, Israel will win. AIPAC is perfectly fine with either of my two opponents because they know that they will have a comfortable, reliable vote in the U.S. Senate. If you want politics to work for you, if you want politics to rebuild your schools or fix your infrastructure or to invest in your health care, you have an alternative choice. We're running to get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all. There's a reason that both Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump don't want to see me on the inside of the U.S. Senate, because I'm a threat to politics as usual.
Moving on, but staying in the Middle East, despite a ceasefire, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues, and Israel maintains that eliminating Hamas remains essential to its security. What, if any, is the role of the United States in trying to resolve this long-standing impasse? 60 seconds, sir.
Well, I'll tell you this. For a long time, every president has said that they believe in a two-state solution. The problem, of course, is that our policy has been to subsidize the Israeli military to the tune of billions of your tax dollars every single year. And their goal is to foreclose on the possibility of a Palestinian state. I believe in international law. I believe we have to hold every country to international law, which means to me that we need to stop funding the Israeli military in unilateral blank checks. That also includes Egypt, that includes Saudi Arabia. I also believe that we cannot continue to sell weapons to a country that is doing human rights abuses, genocide, and apartheid. I also believe that we need to stop running cover for what has become a rogue state that is now trying to annex southern Lebanon. And I also believe that your money needs to be spent here. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate losers are you and me, the taxpayers who paid that money to provide good infrastructure, build schools, provide health care for our own kids, not to watch it get sent to buy bombs and tanks that end up annihilating other people and their children.
Congresswoman, 60 seconds.
The goal has to be long-term peace, and this is what I have long worked for. I stood alongside families who had relatives taken hostage by Hamas, and I called for a permanent ceasefire. The difference between my opponent and myself on this issue is that I believe in a two-state solution. I can say that Israel has a right to peacefully exist alongside the people of Palestine and in Gaza. It is very clear that Mr. Netanyahu has not made us safer, has not brought us closer to peace, and he's endangered Jews here in America and around the world. This is why he was just trashing me today on CNN. I am not afraid of bullies. I am not afraid to stand up, and I continue to stand up for humanitarian aid, for the U.S. to work with the countries in the region and get aid into Gaza.
30 seconds.
Look, I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. But the question I think the Congresswoman needs to answer is, why has she allowed $40 million of outside spending, the bulk of it coming from AIPAC, to come into this race? I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu is attacking her to actually attack her. I think he's attacking her to try and steer away the stink of how staunchly she stands for their policy. So let's take that opportunity. Explain what you've given away for AIPAC support in this race.
30 seconds to wrap up.
No one owns my vote and no one owns my policies. Anyone who is contributing to my Senate campaign is doing so because of my proven record of fighting for Michigan. What I did when I served as chief of staff on the U.S. Auto Rescue, saving 200,000 Michigan jobs, and what I have done to get the CHIPS and Science Act passed and signed into law. What my opponent needs to answer is, why is the GOP spending thousands of dollars to prop up his campaign, saying that he will make Mike Rogers the next U.S. Senator?
All right, we're going to move on. As I told you before we started, we have a lot of viewer questions. Amber Kriska is my colleague, and she will be presenting those. You'll be able to see them there. You'll be able to hear them in the studio. If for any reason they are not clear, let me know, and I will repeat them. Here is Amber with our first viewer question.
A lot of questions on this next topic, bipartisanship. This is from Mark Newman. In the spirit of bipartisanship, talk specifically about how you will reach across the aisle. Name a particular project that you will champion that will require working with the opposing party.
Congresswoman, 60 seconds.
Well, I don't have to just talk about what I would do. I can certainly talk about what I have done in terms of passing bipartisan legislation like the CHIPS and Science Act. But to answer our viewers' question very specifically, I have a plan to lessen Michigan and the United States' dependence on China, to lower cost and to create those good manufacturing jobs. That is day one legislation for me in the United States Senate. And look, there is a reason why the Center for Effective Lawmaking recognized me as the most effective lawmaker for Michigan in the Congress, because I fight for us, I win for us. Debbie Stabenow has endorsed my campaign. Our Attorney General Dana Nessel has endorsed me for United States Senate because of their fight for Michigan and their results for Michigan, and them seeing the same in me. And so, yes, when we talk about manufacturing, when I bring in my supply chain bill to the floor, I feel really excited about getting other colleagues on the Republican side to join me.
Thank you. Move on. Dr. El-Sayed, 60 seconds.
I'm proud to have been endorsed by the UAW. And the reason that they've endorsed me is because they understand that I am a fighter for working people. I can tell you that there is bipartisan support already to blow up the USMCA, which has been a cancer on our manufacturing industry in Michigan and the industrial Midwest in general. That is a bill, of course, that my colleague actually voted for. And I think there's bipartisan consensus that that has been a danger. We have an opportunity to rethink trade policy to make sure that we're protecting good union jobs in this state and in this country. And I think that means rethinking how we do tariffs. Now, Donald Trump's version of tariffs is like chemotherapy, but you give the patient all the chemo at the same time. I think there's an opportunity where you pace it out. You think critically about how you protect critical budding manufacturing industry, and that you are transparent with your trading partners about how you do this in an effort to build long-term sustainable manufacturing manufacturing jobs. I've heard a lot from Republicans saying that they want to bring manufacturing jobs back. Let's roll up our sleeves, work together to get that done.
30 seconds, Congresswoman.
Well, NAFTA was a crap deal, and it hurt a lot of Michiganders. And what is also hurting us right now are Donald Trump's reckless policies that Mike Rogers has said he wants to rubber stamp. There's a reason why the Gordie Howe Bridge isn't open, and Mike Rogers is rubber stamping that. There's a reason why a trade war is going on with Canada. Small businesses all over Michigan losing revenue as a result. I thought he was going to take on China. I've got the bill to do that and to lessen our dependence and grow manufacturing jobs. I've done it once before, and I'll do it again as Michigan's next senator.
30 seconds.
And the reason that the big corporations always get their way when it comes to free trade is because they buy off politicians to do their bidding. Everybody knew USMCA was not going to solve the problem. Everybody knew it. And yet, they bought the votes to get their way. And now you can buy a cheap TV, but you can't find a manufacturing job that can actually feed your family. That is the devastation of corporate-bought politics. As the only candidate who's never taken a dime from a corporation, you know I'm going to stand up for you. It's the reason. Again, the UAW, nurses, AFT have all supported us because when it comes to the choice between working people and corporations, I will pick people every time.
Yeah, and it's the only reason you haven't released your tax returns.
All right.
And 15 labor unions are endorsing me. Thank you, I yield, Rick. Yes.
Amber has another. Sure, go ahead.
I respond?
Quickly, very quickly.
Yeah, I took the same extension that the Congresswoman took every single year she was in Congress.
I'm talking about your tax returns, Abdul. You haven't released your tax returns.
All right,
you don't need an extension to do that.
There's a process.
Who's putting money in your pocketbook?
We're going to move forward with another viewer question. Amber is here with another viewer who wants to know where the two of you stand.
Is the Democratic Party shifting? Joe Beelan has our next question. He says, many of my friends who are Democrats are very concerned with the way the party has shifted so far left that the party no longer accurately represents their views. Will you continue on the current party path, or will you pursue your own path of leadership?
60 seconds for you.
I'll pursue my own path of leadership, educated by the countless days that I spent talking to Michiganders across 110 cities, 450 public events. Now, here's the thing about it. There is no left or right. Most people out there aren't asking, where do I fit on the left-right spectrum? They're asking, can I afford my groceries when I go grocery shopping? What's going to happen if I get sick or my kid gets sick? Why does my kid's school look the same way it did 30 years ago when I went there? And the answer to that question is that for too long, politicians on both sides of the aisle have taken the same corporate corrupting money. I'm the only candidate on this stage, frankly, the only candidate running for U.S. Senate, who's never taken a dime of that money, which is why the real issue is about the people locking you out of your politics versus the people being locked out. And I will stand always on the side of the folks who are locked out. That is a pathway in our politics that I think all of us can get behind. It's not red, it's not blue, it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, it's American. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That is where our politics needs to go. And in the next 250 years, when we get to chart where we go from here, I hope we remember that that's what we need.
60 seconds.
I will run through anything and anyone to deliver for Michigan. We've got to lower the cost. Look, there are many who want to make this run for U.S. Senate about Washington, D.C. insider deals and what's going on with our party leadership. Friends, this is about the future of Michigan. Who is going to be the workhorse? Look, I've got the receipts. I have passed big pieces of legislation. I passed my first bill to secure STEM grants for our K through 12 schools in my first year in Congress. I am ready to hit the ground for our schools, for our educators, and to stand up to the corruption and the abuse of power that we see coming down from Donald Trump. If you want to stop Trump, I'm your gal.
The question was about the direction of the party. Is it shifting?
Well, I'll tell you this. It won't shift if we continue to elect leaders who take money from the same corporations who have broken with the interests of the American public. Chuck Schumer desperately wants one of us to be the next senator, and it's not me. So if you want your politics dictated you by AIPAC or Chuck Schumer, then I'm not your guy. I think we need to go back to the idea of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. $40 million of spending in this race. $40 million. I want you to think about what that means. That's money that buys something on the back end. So if you elect the person who took that money, don't be surprised when they betray you.
Except for, again, I have the receipts as the most effective lawmaker for Michigan. I'm not trying to go viral or get a good tweet out, all right? If you check the facts, the claims that my opponent has made about eradicating medical debt are untrue. If that's all you got to run on, Abdul, well, then good for you.
It's worth noting here that over the weekend, a third candidate that was in this race dropped out. That leaves the two of you. One of you will face Republican Mike Rogers, as you both talked about a little bit here. Congresswoman Stevens, you've been endorsed, as you said, by former Senator Debbie Stabenow, former Governor Jennifer Granholm, and as you said, by the Attorney General. You have, Mr. El-Sayed, been endorsed by Bernie Sanders, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and a number of others. I went to both of your websites, long list of endorsements. Is this race not only about control of the U.S. Senate, which it may well come down to, but is this race also for control of the Democratic Party? Is there something else on the line here? 60 seconds.
Well, I'm not going to let the pundits or the prognosticators make any such determination. For me, this has always been about Michigan. I am the daughter of small business owners who met at Oakland University. My dad is 81 years old and still driving his Ford F-150 with the word Stevens Landscaping on the side, and he's drinking his water. Look, it's that value of hard work, that ethos that I grew up with that has always long motivated my approach to public service. And the reason I have put up my hand to run for U.S. Senate is because of what I'm hearing from Michiganders, because a fully paralyzed veteran reached out to me and asked me if he was still going to get his benefit check because he saw Elon Musk walking around with a chainsaw. I have stood up, I have called these guys out, and I am stopping these abuses of power. And you better believe from the United States Senate, Michigan's voice will be heard with me.
60 seconds.
I never intended to run for office. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor because I could go 15 hours to my family's native Egypt or 15 minutes from where I grew up. I went to medical school only to realize that our healthcare system was, in fact, part of the problem, not part of the solution. I went into public health. We eliminated medical debt. Yes, we eliminated medical debt. We put glasses on kids' faces. We took on corporate polluters. We provided free health insurance. We did the things that for too long government fails to do under leadership that is bought off by corporations. I'm running to do three things: get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, pass Medicare for all. I'm not doing this because of some direction of a party. I'm doing this because of the Michiganders that I've gotten to see. A woman who had cancer 3 times and happened to hold on, managed to hold on to her life savings until the 3rd one. A woman who lost her entire life savings because her kid got cancer and died. People who have come and shared their burden with us. If we continue to allow corporations to buy our politicians, do not be surprised when everything gets more expensive and your job gets further out of reach. That is the politics that is corrupting now, and we need different.
30 seconds.
Well, transparency remains really key here. You can see my tax returns. I've made them public. Again, I call on my opponent to do the same, because we do need to know who's putting money in your pocket, particularly if you have a talent agency getting you paid speeches. I've been busy doing the work for Michiganders. Period, full stop. Power Outage Relief Act. We're still dealing with that. Small businesses losing their revenues. We got to do supply chain security. I've got a bill for that. I am ready to go for us, Michigan, on day one.
30 seconds to wrap.
Let's talk about power outages. People sleeping in dark rooms without electricity for the 4th straight day. My opponent's taking $37,500 from DTE. Ask yourself what that buys. Our politics have been deeply and profoundly corrupted by corporate money, and I want to get money out. You want to talk about transparency? There's a group called Center Forward that happened to pay for a flight for the Congresswoman and her mother to Portugal. I want to understand what she promised them in return. You want to talk about transparency? Why are there $40 million flowing into our politics right now in support of my opponent?
Yeah. Well, and again, I have the receipts and I have the bill to stand up to the utility
Explain
companies
them.
at the lower rates.
Explain the receipts.
So, yes, I've got the,
You're not
I've got the
explaining
multiple bills.
I'll give you a chance when we come back
Thank you.
in a moment. But first, we're going to take a break. And when we come back in 90 seconds, we're going to talk about something that has been discussed a lot in the past few months, and that's immigration enforcement and ICE. That's coming up. But first, we're going to take a break. The candidates will enter the spin room once our debate concludes. There is a QR code right now that will take you to our live post-debate coverage on WOOD TV+. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Debate Week in Michigan. We are happy to have both of the Democratic candidates for the United States Senate are here in the studio with me, and I want you both to have an opportunity to address things that have been coming up during the course of this time. So what I'm going to do in a couple of minutes is I'm going to set some time aside, and you can both address those grievances. But for now, I want to continue with the questions that we have. Many people have been critical of Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, in the past months regarding their methods, their detention facilities. Both of you on some level have had some questions, problems with and about ICE. If not ICE, how would we, how should we, how could we deal with the estimated millions of people in this country that didn't come through the proper channels, that we don't necessarily know who they are or where they are? I'm going to start with you, Dr. El-Sayed. With 60 seconds, what do we do with that situation?
So I just want to be clear. I went to Minneapolis at the height of Project Metro Surge. I watched as our government laid siege to a city in our own country. It was awful to see. ICE is not about immigration. ICE is not about the southern border. I was on nearly the northern border. ICE is about normalizing paramilitary force on our streets. I've been clear that you can't reform ICE, you can't retrain ICE, you have to abolish ICE. Now, that's not to say that we can't secure our border. That's not even to say that we can't actually enforce our immigration policy. That is to say that we shouldn't do it at the edge of destroying our Constitution itself. ICE is a new agency. It is younger than I am. We have done this in the past in a way that respects the basic rule of law. And if we're serious about actually having a pathway in this country to a humane, thoughtful, common sense immigration system, we've got to invest in the court infrastructure that offers a pathway to citizenship for people who built a life here, that lived here peaceably, and contributed to our society. I think that's the responsibility we need to go to while keeping our southern border safe and secure.
What would we do about ICE in 60 seconds?
Yeah, well, before I jump to the bipartisan border security bill that I do support, it must be said very clearly that Donald Trump's ICE is completely out of control, and it is an abuse of power. ICE agents from top to bottom that have committed crimes have to be held accountable, and I've got the legislation to do it. I called on Kristi Noem to go. She was removed, but no reforms took place. They took $70 billion of our taxpayer money into an ICE slush fund. This has been a failure. A temple in my district was blown up. It wasn't ICE that stood up. It was state and local law enforcement. That money needs to be redirected to those law enforcement agencies that are responsible for our safety and security. Donald Trump has abused his power. He has failed the American people, and we need change.
30 seconds for you.
Look, I appreciate the change of tone on ICE. I mean, my colleague voted to thank ICE and increase their budget, and also took money from people who run ICE contracts. That, to me, seems very different than what we're hearing now. I've been deeply clear. I don't take money from corporations. I don't take money from ICE contractors, which is why I can say with a clear voice, we need to abolish ICE. I think we need clarity about where folks' money comes from and what trades they make on the policy on the back end to bob and weave on these issues when these are issues of life and death.
30 seconds to wrap this.
Well, it's really unfortunate yet again to see my opponent pursuing Republican tactics. There was a bill on the House floor to condemn an anti-Semitic terrorist attack that in Boulder, Colorado, that killed an individual and injured a Holocaust survivor. Instead of bringing us together, Republicans put in a cynical point about thanking ICE. I am always going to stand up to violence, and I just wish my opponent wouldn't pursue the cynical approaches of Republicans when we do need to be united.
Amber's back with us with yet another viewer question. Let's do this question, and then we're going to come back to some of this in just a moment. Let's do the question.
Childcare is one of the biggest expenses for the average Michigan family. Jacob Exline, who is an early childhood educator, wants to know, what would your plan be to make childcare more affordable for families as a U.S. Senator?
Congresswoman,
yes.
60 seconds.
I have long championed affordable child care here in Michigan and across this country. And in fact, I was on the phone with the daycare centers and the families when COVID hit, fighting to secure dollars to make sure that daycare centers and the people who work in them stay open and employed. Look, the costs continue to go up. The way in which we can lower daycare costs are through the expansion of CDBG see funding and grants that match what our great governor here in Michigan did. I actually went to a daycare center with her in Troy, Michigan to celebrate some of the programs that she put into place. And the other deal that we need is we need paid family leave. I'm a champion for paid family leave. We need to secure the ability for new mothers and fathers to have that precious time with their newborns. That's another critical step. I've got the record.
60 seconds, sir.
I'm a father of 2 daughters, and the child care for our youngest, who's 3 years old, is one of the most expensive items on our entire budget. It is insane how much people have to pay. And for a lot of folks, this has become a gender justice issue. It's forcing people out of the workforce, predominantly women, and it's holding them behind from lucrative opportunities that they can use to advance their family in the first place. I think we need to make childcare free. 100% free. Now, how do we pay for that? We pay for that by taxing billionaires their wealth. We could render $4.6 trillion if we were willing to put, let's say, an 8% tax on billionaire wealth. This is not that difficult, but it's a function of our values. Do we care enough to make sure that women have access to the workplace, that children have a safe, healthy place to go, or would we rather be the kind of economy that allows billionaires to make a second billion, a third billion, a trillion, maybe like Elon Musk? That is the question we need to answer. And ultimately, so long as we allow billionaires and corporations to buy politicians, we're going to get the wrong answer.
30 seconds.
This Senate seat is considered a toss-up for November, a 50-50 chance that it will go Democrat or Republican. The one thing that I do is I win tough races. I flipped a congressional seat that was long held by a Republican, blue in 2018, and I held it when Donald Trump was on the ballot. Living my values, living the values to make change and improve people's lives. Mike Rogers, he's not going to do a thing to impact child care and make it more affordable for families.
30 seconds.
Look, if you want somebody who's electable, the last 3 polls in a row show that I'm the most electable Democrat in November. Why? Because you got to actually fight for something. It's not enough to offer people 2 options that kind of look the same on the issues that matter the most. If you're taking money from corporations, the same corporations, Democrat or Republican, how different are things really going to be? I'm offering an opportunity to actually invest in what we want to fight for healthcare that is guaranteed, for an economy that works for working people, for finally getting corporate money out of our politics.
Well, with all due respect to Abdul, I think he looks a lot like more like Mike Rogers than I do.
All right. So we have apparently scratched the surface on a couple of differences between the two of you. And this is not scripted, and this is not something that's planned, and the people in the control room are about to pull their hair out. But I want to give you 30 seconds, and I want to give you 30 seconds to pursue whatever this is that's going on here. Obviously, you've got a question about some of the money in her campaign. You've got a question about some of the money in his pocket. Yeah. 30 seconds, go.
Well, look, my opponent wants to make this race about lies and attacking my integrity and the work that I've done for the people of Michigan. Look, I was the person from Michigan on the team working on President Obama's auto rescue. I have a proven track record that I am proud of fighting for this state, standing up to special interests, and I have 15 labor unions standing alongside me in this fight and some other proven individuals as well. So can we stop the lies, and can we get the transparency out that my opponents long talked about?
I'd love to stop the lies that are being told on TV by organizations like the Center for Democratic Priorities, which, by the way, didn't exist until it started to run ads for my opponent. Like the United Democratic Progressives, which, by the way, is a front for AIPAC. Like Center Forward, which bought airline tickets for my opponent, for her mother and herself to go to Portugal. I don't know what they talked about. I don't know what they did. So if we want to talk about lies, I think it's really important for us to understand who's paying for them and what was said on the back end to allow them to be told. Because $40 million, it doesn't come for free.
So is the GOP...
I'm glad we got that all cleared up. So we're going to get back to these questions. I want to talk about data centers for a minute. I'm going to give you a premise. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but here's my premise. Data centers are going to be built somewhere no matter what happens in Michigan. So the question is, are we better off to have some of those centers here, or should they be actively opposed, as they have been by many citizens in meeting after meeting across the state? And it's first to you, sir. 60 seconds.
Look, right now people are scared to death that there's going to be this gigantic data center put in their backyard so people like Mike Rogers can make gender-affirming videos about how buff they really are. I think we have to be serious about the fact that these pose real dangers. And the people who are pushing them are the richest, most powerful corporate CEOs in the history of our economy. And so we've put forward a terms of engagement. We want to make sure that if you want to put a data center anywhere, that it's going to meet the following terms: all union labor, no raising our utility rates, increasing our utility reliability, not touching our water, and then there has to be a community benefits agreement that's negotiated in good faith with all the money put up in escrow, and this has to be fully enforceable, including shutting down the data center. That has to be passed at the federal level. Now, here's the thing. Big AI has huge super PACs that guess who they're funding, not me, the other person on this stage. And so the question for us is, are we willing to actually do what it takes to protect people from these risks? Or are we going to let them roll us, just like corporations continue to roll our politicians over and over again?
Congresswoman, 60 seconds.
Yeah, well, look, the citizens need to be heard on innovation and data centers. And it is up to federal lawmakers to secure the tax code so that these gajillionaire enterprises are paying their fair share. It is unacceptable that rates would go up as a result. I want to force these data centers to pay the utility bills and to pay water bills for folks. And look, I also want to secure Michigan being on the forefront of innovation and manufacturing. I visited hundreds of manufacturing shop floors. They are using this technology. We want the jobs. We just can't afford to force the workers to pay for it. And look, yet again, my opponent takes jabs, except for he won't denounce the GOP when they are funding his operation and his candidacy, and now bragging about the false polls that they're putting out that he's going to be the best one to beat Mike Rogers. That's me.
30 seconds.
I'm sure everybody out there thinks that Republicans really want me to win this race. Sure. The real question is, how much money has the AI industry spent in this race? And why are they spending it? And whose vote are they buying? And what does that mean for you? If you want a future where AI is fully unregulated, where we lose, what, 50% of our jobs, where a data center sits in your backyard, you have a choice. If you want someone who's going to stand up for the people against the corporations, you also have a choice. Notice, none of the answers actually speak to any of the points I'm making about the money that is being spent in these races to corrupt our politics.
30
because
seconds.
I have receipts, and the people who are watching this need to evaluate who is running for U.S. Senate, the chief lawmaking role in this country that has the record, that is not a show horse, that is not, I am not someone trying to go viral and shouting into a bullhorn about problems. I am delivering. That is not something my opponent can say. He's great at attacking, and he's great at covering up that his father-in-law is running his super PAC that's spending millions of dollars for him.
All right. Going to move on to a question that you have both addressed, because these go together. And this one will go first to you, Congresswoman. We hear a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, hear about it every day. I doubt that most of us have a really good grasp of exactly what it is, what role it's going to play in our lives going forward, what role the government has in putting guardrails on technology that few fully understand, that could be a positive game changer that is evolving all of the time and is displacing workers already. We know that that's happening. So should the government jump in the business of regulating AI? 60 seconds.
Yeah, and look, Abdul is lying. Again, he has a super PAC that is run by his father-in-law that has spent millions of dollars on his behalf, and the GOP is also spending money. It's good to know that his father-in-law isn't involved with AI. Here is the deal. I passed my first AI bill into law in 2020, all right, in my first term in Congress. I have supported resources to invest and protect in the privacy for consumers and to stand up for the little guy, particularly small businesses who need equitable investment, Black-owned businesses like ones I visit on the regular, who oftentimes are getting the short end of the stick, and they certainly are from Donald Trump. I want to make sure that resources are coming into our communities and that jobs are protected and maintained. We can do this here in Michigan. We just need the right leadership, and I believe that is me.
Do we need to regulate AI? 60 seconds.
Absolutely. First, I just want to be clear. The National Nurses United is not my father-in-law. Working Families Party is not my father-in-law. The UAW is not my father-in-law. But I also want to speak to the fact that we do need to regulate AI. And so long as we are taking money, the party is taking money from the AI industry, it's not likely to happen. I proposed a plan putting AI under democracy. What does that mean? That means that I want to make sure that legacy internet companies no longer own the means of creating AI, that AI corporations are spun off as public interest corporations, and that at least 50% of their boards are publicly appointed, meaning through the democratic process. I also want real clear guardrails on what AI can and can't do. I want an agency in the government like an FDA for AIs. And I want to make sure that we pass our terms of agreement. I can say all this because I'm not bought off by the AI companies. You talked about that 2020 regulation. That was a giveaway to the AI industry. So yes, if you want someone who's really effective at giving giveaways to the AI industry, you have your option in this race.
30 seconds.
Well, I'm pleased that my opponent read my deep fake bill to better detect the use of AI, particularly with our children. It was written alongside the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and I am proud that that passed. And you should be supporting it, not attacking it. But that seems to be the only thing and stunt that he can pull while the GOP is supporting his campaign. And look, I worked really hard to make sure that Kamala Harris was going to get elected and that Donald Trump would be stopped. And my opponent did nothing.
I don't know what Kamala Harris has to do with AI, but I want to speak to the fact that right now we have a choice. $40 million. We're being outspent 30-1 in this race, 30-1. That money is coming in from AIPAC. Their goal is to make sure that our money is sent abroad to kill other people rather than kept here to invest here. Now, the question you might be asking is, what does it have to do with the question about AI? Government will continue to work for the people who buy off government so long as we allow people to buy off government. It is that simple. And you're seeing a case in point of that.
This next question is one that I take very seriously. I suspect many of the viewers do as well. The national debt is more than $39 trillion. $39 trillion. Now, the interest on that debt's about $1 trillion a year. CBO says by 2036, it'll be about $2 billion a year. That'll be about 25% of every dollar that comes into the national treasury. What do we do to begin to reduce this burden that will be passed along to your children and likely their children? Would you raise taxes? Would you vow to cut spending? What would you do? 60 seconds.
Look, as everyday Michiganders know, that a budget sheet is about money in and money out. And for a long time, folks on the conservative side want to tell us that it's all about money out. We're spending too much. But then they do two things. They cut taxes for the richest people in society, and then they cut things like healthcare. And guess what happens? They fight wars that we don't need to fight. So money out goes up, money in goes down, and we run up the national debt. And then Democrats show up, and we're trying to be effective stewards of the national debt. So here's what we need to do. We need to run the play in reverse. How about we end stupid wars we shouldn't be fighting at the behest of foreign governments? How about we start taxing billionaires their wealth so that we can return trillions of dollars to the economy? And how about we invest our money in the things that people actually need, like good education, childcare, good hospitals, and healthcare? Those are the opportunities we have in front of us so long as we don't allow the same corporations and billionaires to buy our politicians so that they keep doing these ridiculous things.
60 seconds.
Our national debt keeps me up for Michiganders, and it is very serious, in part because it is mortgaging the future of our children. And the way in which we get out of our debt and deficit mess is by taxing the growing billionaire class and forcing them to pay their fair share. We are growing our economy, except for it's just with the very, very few who aren't paying their fair share. If you listen to Donald Trump, who my opponent just admitted he didn't do anything to help stop him from getting elected, he wants to do everything for the billionaire class. Donald Trump did tax cuts for them while cutting our food assistance and our health care benefits. It's not acceptable, and it's not working. We can't look at the middle class here in Michigan and force them to keep paying. People can't pay their bills right now. People are underwater. I've had 2 working moms in the last day tell me that. It doesn't work.
30 seconds.
Look, I just want to be clear. I endorsed Vice President Harris. I campaigned for Vice President Harris. I really wanted Vice President Harris to win this race. Now, ask yourself why we were where we were. Because for too long, our policy has been wrong on a number of critical issues. And it's been wrong because of the role of special interests in our politics. The same exact special interests who get their way when it comes to our tax system, the same exact special interests that have us fighting stupid wars we shouldn't be fighting, the same special interests who are funding my opponent.
30 seconds for you.
Well, look, leadership is going to get us out of our debt and deficit mess. And as someone who has my finger on the pulse of the needs of the middle class here in Michigan, you and your family, and I have the receipts and the track record of standing up for you when it matters, when 200,000 Michigan jobs were on the line, when General Motors and Chrysler were going to go bankrupt, and I worked on that initiative to save your jobs and those jobs. Look, we can use tax dollars effectively without letting our country go bankrupt.
Here's another question that Amber has for us, and this one kind of goes along with what we're talking about. Here's Amber.
Social Security is a top issue for many Michiganders. This next question is from Mark Luxford. As a senior, Social Security is a very important issue to me. What is your opinion of the proposal to guarantee adequate funding for this critically important program by raising, or better yet, eliminating the income cap for the FICA tax that funds Social Security?
60 seconds, Congressman.
Well, I fully endorse that proposal of eliminating the FICA cap and making sure that folks are paying their fair share. What is going on with Social Security right now is another example of how Donald Trump and the billionaire class believe that they can rob our Social Security trust fund and force the middle class to pay for the crisis that we are going to be in. We can fix this. I have also stood up to Donald Trump today and said, rehire the Social Security workers that you have fired, because my constituents, they're on the phone trying to get access to their disability benefit, their retirement benefit, and no one's picking up. And again, these are programs that folks have paid into. I believe in it. Mike Rogers, Donald Trump, they're going to sell us down the Potomac River.
60 seconds.
I've talked to so many seniors who are struggling. They're struggling because they paid their home off 30 years ago, but the property tax is getting too high. Their premium on their Medicare is unaffordable, and their Social Security just doesn't cut it. And they're worried they might lose that Social Security. So yes, absolutely, we have to lift the cap. It would make Social Security sustainable, but we've got to go further. I think we need to be eliminating the premiums, the copays, and the deductibles on Medicare, and we need to make Medicare fully sustainable by extending it to everybody. Medicare for all would do exactly that. On top of that, I think we need to be freezing property tax for seniors. If you paid off your home at some point, we can't expect you to keep up with property taxes that are going up. Now, how do we pay for that? Well, again, if we tax billionaires their wealth, if we were to invest in the Department of Education so that we're paying centrally for public schools in an equitable way, there are a lot of opportunities for us to lift the burden off of seniors who've done their job. They've worked extra hard. They deserve a dignified retirement, and we've got to be thinking about how to offer them that.
Congressman, 30 seconds.
They are bankrupting the Social Security Trust Fund. It is unconscionable and wrong, and Michigan is going to have a choice about who it sends to the United States Senate to do something, who's got the vision long-term for a 6-year term to tackle a tough issue, and that is what I have done. Over and over again, I have a plan for Social Security, a plan to be able to work across the aisle if need be, and most importantly, stand up to Donald Trump and Elon Musk in this moment.
30 seconds.
Look, I'm here to serve you. I'm somebody who worked in the bowels of city and county government. Those are the kind of jobs where you can't dodge tough issues. You got to show up Monday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday too. You've got to make sure people get the services that they need and deserve. And I know in places like DC, they look down on people who work in local government. But I also think that we need that viewpoint in the U.S. Senate right now. We also need the viewpoint of a doctor, somebody who understands what it's like to make sure that you look people in the eye and deliver for them. And I think we haven't had that viewpoint, frankly, in a Democrat since 1969. I aim to offer that.
This is going to be our final question. We're going to limit this answer to 45 seconds. There will be a rebuttal, but 45 seconds on the main question. The current economic tensions with China have created concerns that range from cheap electric vehicles being flooded into some international markets to military concerns over the buildup of China's armed forces and the dependence of our own military on Chinese goods and services. Should we be working to lessen our dependence on China? And how should we deal with a major competitor as well as a major trading partner? 45 seconds.
My dad moved to this country to learn to make cars, and he believed in this place. He immigrated from Egypt, the place where that was not possible. And he chose to come here because this was a place where innovation, ingenuity, those were unleashed. We had the mighty UAW who was empowered to make the cars that my dad would design. The challenge, of course, is that corporatism has gotten in the way. I remember when my dad came home in 1996 and said, a company that's more interested in finance than it is in engineering is not going to be a car company very long. Fast forward, 2008, there we were. I think we need to make sure our corporations think long-term. I think we need to make sure that we are using trade as an effective way to empower and protect our manufacturing capacity. And then I think we need to unleash ingenuity by investing in research and development for the future. This needs to continue to be the most innovative place, and Donald Trump has sold that way far away.
45 seconds.
Well, to every engineer watching tonight, I know how a CNC machine works and a robotic welder. I am Michigan's manufacturing geek, and nothing is motivating me more than standing up for our manufacturing sector and our jobs, and that means taking on China. Look, I've got the bill. One I also did with Senator Slotkin. No Chinese Cars Act. We have to stop these guys from coming in to our market, lowering costs up the wazoo that only feeds their Communist Party. That's not correct. That's not going to work for us in Michigan. We can build affordable cars here in Michigan without having the Chinese come in and eat our lunch. Not on my watch.
30 seconds.
There's a reason that the UAW has endorsed me in this race. And they endorsed me in this race because I understand that the biggest challenge we have right now, the thing that is throttling our ingenuity, is the fact that our corporations are a lot more interested in a quarterly bottom line than they are in the long-term sustainability of manufacturing. I think we need to think differently. That means standing up to Wall Street, not taking their money to run your campaigns. And at the end of the day, the reason I believe in money out of politics, then money in your pocket and Medicare for all, is because as long as we're taking money from those corporations, we are not going to regulate them.
30 seconds.
Look, I have taken on Vladimir Putin when he stole my constituent, Paul Whelan, and held him in a Russian prison for 5.5 years. I am taking on China now and standing up for our jobs and not letting them flood our markets through the north or the south. Their technology cannot come in here. This is about our way of life in Michigan. This is squarely why I am running for U.S. Senate, to articulate this and defend it and protect it at the lawmaking table.
Time to wrap up this debate, if you can believe it already. You have done a great job in keeping within your time frame. I'll ask you to stay at 60 seconds with closing statements, beginning with you.
We just celebrated our 250th anniversary. I know what my life would have been without the opportunity to be born here. I saw that firsthand in summers in Egypt. I know what America can do for somebody. I also knew that 15 miles away, there were kids who never got that same opportunity. We have to build an America that can be what it was for me for all of her kids. And that means we've got to take on the ways that corporate greed have gotten in the way. We need to stand with working people, stand with unions. We need to take on oligopolies and billionaires. We need to guarantee health care through Medicare for all. Across my time touring this state, town hall after town hall, you could be in a church in Detroit, you can be in a living room in Lansing, a VFW hall in Escanaba. People say the same things. It just shouldn't be this hard. Shouldn't be this hard to afford your groceries. Shouldn't be this hard to pay your rent. Shouldn't be this hard to see a doctor in the richest, most powerful country in the world. And that means we've got to build a movement of people to get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all. I hope that you'll join us in building that movement. It's the many versus the money.
Congresswoman, 60 seconds.
I am fed up and fired up. I am fed up with Michiganders getting screwed over by bad policies that are coming down from the Trump administration that do not understand the first thing about us and that are raising our costs and impacting our way of life and coming for our jobs. I am fired up, though, to be your next U.S. Senator. I am fired up to lead for us on day one and when it matters, and to be in this fight alongside you and your families. All 83 counties in this incredible state of ours, the largest state geographically east of the Mississippi, deserves its workhorse, and that is me. That is why I am on this campaign trail, listening to you, hearing you, and leading in that order. That is my ethos. That is why I am running. Let's go beat Mike Rogers, send him back to Florida a second time, and make sure that Michigan shines at the lawmaking table.
Candidates, thank you both for being here. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to do it. I know you know how much I appreciate it. I just want to make sure I say it publicly to both of you. I want to thank Amber and all of my colleagues here at WOOD TV, our corporate staff who has been doing a great job and helping us from the get-go, to all of our partners around the state that are carrying this debate tonight. And particularly, I want to thank everybody who has just been here on the ground and helping us. A reminder to join us back here on Thursday night for a debate with the Republican candidates for governor. Good night from Grand Rapids.
Thank you.
Now, Debate Week in Michigan. Post-debate coverage from your local election headquarters.
And Debate Week in Michigan continues right now on WOOD TV+. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Sterling. We're now in the debate spin room. For the last hour, we have listened to the two candidates for the Democratic U.S. Senate nomination square off, and now we want to take this further. We will interview both candidates one-on-one, and we'll also check in with our debate moderator, Rick Albin. And then we'll let the credentialed media come in, at least a dozen different outlets, both locally and nationally, as this is a race that has attracted the attention of not only the state, but the nation. Let's begin with our friend over here, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Welcome to West Michigan tonight.
Honored to be here. Thank you.
This was the second debate that you've enjoyed this campaign season. Talk about your closing argument here in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, look, we have an opportunity to build a movement of the people, by the people, for the people, as government was supposed to be, to get money out of politics, put money back in pockets, and pass Medicare for All. I'm proud to have earned the endorsements of everybody from Bernie Sanders to the UAW to the National Nurses United to the American Federation of Teachers. Working people coming together in a movement. Now, look, we're being outspent 30-1. You've probably seen the attack ads. That is unbecoming of our politics. It's a cynical way of doing politics. I'm not asking AIPAC to fund my campaign so that I'd be a reliable vote to send your tax dollars somewhere else when they need to be used here. I'm not asking corporations to give me their money so that I can turn around and do them a favor. I'm asking everyday Michiganders to give me their vote, their voice, so that I can show up and work for them and fight for them to finally get this cynical corporate money out of our politics so we can get along to standing with unions, taxing billionaires their wealth, rebuilding our schools and our infrastructure, and guaranteeing health care through Medicare for All.
You've heard the argument, certainly, that you're too far left for a state like Michigan. Why are you the stronger general election candidate, not just the most progressive one?
Well, I'm not the only one who says that. Poll after poll has demonstrated that. And that's because I show up and fight for something. It's not enough to just fight against a Donald Trump. You've got to be fighting for
I think that right now we're at an inflection point because there are so many things going on around the globe. And I think that we have to ask those questions and look into those things. Have her come on over so you guys can get in here and talk. But I think it's true. We did spend a good deal of time on foreign affairs, if you will, but that's something that's top of mind for a lot of people in Washington.
Yeah.
Congresswoman Stevens, thanks for your time right now. Let's ask you this. What's the biggest policy difference between you and Abdul El-Sayed that the Democratic primary vote used to decide to choose you?
Well, look, we're making a decision about who we want to send to the United States Senate to fight for us and to deliver for us. And my track record is doing both. Standing up for Michiganders when their jobs were on the line during the Great Recession, standing up for Michiganders when their jobs were on the line yet again during COVID and the COVID pandemic, and securing our manufacturing supply chain. I work to get things done. I am not trying to be a celebrity or famous or to sell a book or to push a podcast. I'm also not a millionaire like Abdul is. I am a hard-working gal who rolls up my sleeves, fights like heck for Michigan, and delivers for us.
You've served in Congress for several years. What's the one promise you've made to Michigan voters that you believe you've fully delivered on, and maybe one that you acknowledge that you fell a little short?
Well, look, one that I'm really proud of is that I secured the pensions of thousands of Michiganders through legislation that saved them. It was called the Butch-Lewis Act, and I came to Congress with the gusto of wanting to get that done, and I got it done. Finished work that still needs to be done, unfinished business, is we have to do more for public education. I will tell you, when 2020 started, I said I'm going to spend this year working on special ed. Well, 2020 became a different thing. But I am fighting for the unfunded promise to fully fund special education in America. I work deeply with our schools and our school districts. I know most of my superintendents and our head of county schools. They have shown me their budgets. They are robbing Peter to pay Paul to get their schools what they need. Special education in our public schools is a guarantee. Our educators are so incredible, but they are being asked to do the impossible. We have to meet them where we're at. We've got to fund special ed.
Your opponent argues that Democrats accept too much money from corporate interests and that influences policy. You've received support from business and industry groups. How do you convince those skeptical primary voters that your decisions in the Senate are going to be independent of those voices?
Well, look, I work for the people of Michigan and the people of Michigan only. And I'm proud to have spent countless hours visiting with Michigan manufacturers through my manufacturing engagement program. Some I've gotten very close to the workers and seen their products up close, seen their businesses go through good times and tough times, help them where I can. Look, we shouldn't be afraid to support small business here in Michigan and support jobs. And I am deeply proud to be transparent, to be accessible, ask my constituents. They all have my phone number. And look, I've released my tax returns. My opponent hasn't. He wouldn't answer that on the debate stage. He talks about getting money out of people's pocketbooks, putting, money, or getting money out of politics, putting it into your pocket. But we don't know who's putting money into his pocket. Why? Just release the tax returns. So look, I'm over here doing my job as Michigan's workhorse, Michigan's most effective lawmaker, and I'm ready to do it for us in the Senate, standing up to Trump's abuse of power and the corruption that we see going down. They're using the Oval Office as a stock trading floor, all right? They're bankrupting us. They're ripping us off. It's not acceptable.
Representative Haley Stevens, 4 weeks left. Good luck to you. Okay, so we're going to let the media come in now, and we're going to dip in on both of these conversations as the general media, again, national and state, local affiliates coming in to talk to these candidates, because this is a race that has attracted the attention of the country with good reason. This is a state that is seen as purple as it gets, maybe as purple as my tie. And so what's important is, where do the independent voters show up for this? Where do the traditional Democrats fall in line as they're going to vote for this, and all of the ballots that are already out? Absentee ballots went out about a week and a half ago. Kent County Clerk said that they sent out over 100,000 and that 10,000 of the ballots had already come in. So that's why there's a lot of attention on this race and a lot of money being spent. Let's sneak on over. Let's go back to Abdul El-Sayed and get some of his thoughts here as the media is asking him some questions. We're just going to listen in real quick.
And I'm trying to answer those questions. So if you believe like me that we need to get corporations out of our politics to actually start answering those questions honestly for the people, I hope you'll support us.
Right, and as for Medicare for All, that's something that some people in Congress have tried to pass before. How are you going to actually get that passed?
Well, number one, we're going to try. Number two, we're going to ban the impact of big pharma and big insurance and big hospitals in our politics. And number three, we're going to actually have that conversation with folks. Look, I've been to 110 different cities now. I don't do the thing where I do a made-for-TV little stop. I actually do a whole town hall, right? And we spend an hour and a half taking questions. So I've done the work of listening to people. And there is not a room that I walk into where somebody doesn't tell me, you know, Doc, I voted for Donald Trump 3 times, and I'm voting for you. And I asked them why. I said, well, because I really think you want me to have health care. I really want you to have health care. So I think we can win on our values if we're willing to actually have that conversation with the broader public. And I think we should try, because $6,000 in deductible, $225 billion in medical debt, we could do so much better.
Release your personal finances. That was obviously a focus of Congresswoman Stevens. Would you vow to release those before the August 4th primary?
I'm happy to do that. Look, here's the issue. When you can't win a policy debate, when your ads are being paid for by APAC and corporate PACs, folks who are flying you and your mom out to Portugal, then you look for a distraction. At the end of the day, I took the same extension that she's taken every single year that she's been in Congress, the same exact extension. I didn't hear her complaining about herself taking that extension in the past. So look, I'm happy to release them. We will be releasing them soon. But this is a distraction from the fact that people have been seeing those ads. I'm being outspent 30 to 1, 30 to 1. APAC has dropped tens of millions in this race. Tens of millions to do what? They want a reliable vote to send your tax dollars abroad to drop bombs on other people rather than to invest here at home.
Did you think that she was attacking you personally because you have a lead in the polls?
Look, I mean, I think what you're seeing is a level of desperation in that campaign. You know, when you got $40 million spent and you can't seem to nudge the polls, it says something about the quality of candidate and the quality of argument. And so, you know, you're seeing these personal attacks. I mean, you've been seeing the attack ads on TV. Look, I got an 8-year-old daughter at home, and she sees how I treat my wife. She sees how I treat her. She sees how I treat my mom. And to have to explain that to my kid, that just reeks of desperation to me. And it's not in keeping with the kind of politics that we want. And now when you're seeing that attack at $4 million a week, it says a lot about the kind of desperation you're seeing from that campaign. It's sad.
Did you watch Egypt's soccer game today?
I did. Look, I saw.
Are you able to hold?
Okay, good time to step away there talking about soccer. Let's head on over to Representative Stevens now. Another big, large group of media over here. And so she's taking questions. We're going to do the same thing and kind of stick her mic in and see what she's talking about.
Well, I don't. You gotta ask why he's got a podcast and why what he's making money on and all that business. He's got books, podcasts. I got bills.
Representative, do you have a comment on the trip that Abdul brought up to Portugal? Can you explain that and who paid for that trip?
Yeah, look, this is very standard. Members of Congress, I was doing NATO meetings to learn about how we can better assist our partners to end the Ukraine war.
So that was paid by Center Forward and not the House office?
It's a very standard way in which members engage in critical policy.
Should it be?
You know, I've learned a lot to stand up to Putin on that. Manufacturers need. I was shaking a finger asking them why they don't have more American cars on the streets of Portugal.
WWT. There's a lot of concern about the outside money benefiting you in this race. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, look, I'm a transparent, accessible lawmaker with the receipts of helping real people with real problems in the job that I am running for right now. And look, I'm going to continue to be transparent and accessible throughout this campaign and throughout my time in public service. I have been doing the work for Michigan when it matters, and I'm damn proud of it.
Congresswoman, do you think that you purveyed an effective message during this debate? Do you think that you got your point across to the voters of Michigan?
Well, I'm always happy when I'm talking about Michigan and what Michiganders need and what I'm hearing from Michigan and why I want to fight for them. No, I'm not looking for punditry ratings. I'm just excited to be engaging in the deliberation of our democracy on behalf of the people of Michigan to earn their vote, just like I have done many times over in many complicated races. This is a serious moment for Michigan. Make no mistake about it. You know, last year when those crazy tariffs were coming down, 55 in 100 days, some of our counties had some of the fastest growing unemployment in the country, all right? And I'm glad that you're all here so we can get these points out, because I'm going to tell you, Michigan manufacturing has been going down ever since Trump came in, all right? We're losing investments. We've got this super site in Flint that needs somebody to move into it. Well, that fell apart because of Trump's tariffs. We're just hanging on here. That's what people don't understand. We've got tech and AI, but we got capital-intensive industries. Come walk a floor with me. Come talk to some of these folks. So if I get a chance to advocate and shine a light on that, I think I'm winning. And I think that people hear me, that I hear them, that I am fighting for them. That's what we need in the Senate.
You've said that you will go through anybody.
Great exchanges here. Both candidates, again, talking to the media. I'm going to swing back out, and I see Rick Albino standing over here. Maybe a good opportunity to talk to you, Rick. We're hearing a lot of the same arguments here, counterpoints of what we heard through the debate. Writ large, in the big picture, this is kind of a fight about the future of the Democratic Party in this state, is it not?
I certainly think it is, and I asked that question specifically for the reason I think that there's much more riding on this race than just a U.S. Senate seat. Now, by the way, a U.S. Senate seat's a big deal. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I do think it's about the direction of the party. On this side, you have an established candidate that's been endorsed by established Democrats. On the other side, you've got the more progressive candidate that's been endorsed by more progressive Democrats. Now, it's not to say either is right or wrong, but the question is, in Michigan, what wins? You've got to be able to get to that center third to win in a general election. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. You said it yourself. We're a purple state. So you've got to be able to get to that middle third. Where do those voters go? What are they feeling? What are they concerned about? We know it's about the economy. We know that they have problems, but what's the answer? Is it, as we heard, that billionaires should be taxed, or is it something else? So, I mean, the real question is, who can appeal to that middle third? And then, whichever one of these camps wins, what does that say about 2028 and people who are running for president that need to come to Michigan? If you're a Democrat, you've got to win Michigan. That's just the way it is. So if you're going to come to Michigan, who are you going to follow? Are you going to be going with the more traditional campaign or a more progressive campaign? And I think this election will give some indication to those presidential aspirants to know what they can expect when they come to Michigan.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Rick. Who do you think Mike Rogers wants to run against?
I think, first of all, be careful what you wish for, because it doesn't always work out if you think I want to run against candidate A or candidate B. And we've seen, I think, people in the past be overconfident in a certain circumstance. I don't know who he wants to run against. I do know that he came very close 2 years ago. President Trump was on the ticket 2 years ago. He's not on the ticket. He's still very much part of the conversation, but he's not on the actual ballot. So I don't know what that means when we get down to November. And I really don't know if it makes a great deal of difference from this standpoint. Mike Rogers, just like whichever one of these Democratic candidates is the nominee, is going to have to go out and run their own race. They're going to have to convince people to vote, not just vote against somebody else, but vote for them. And I think that's the challenge that any one of the three people, the two that we saw tonight, and Mike Rogers, who has been on the show a number of times as well, they're going to have to go out and run their own race. Will it change the race? Yes, of course it will. But it's really going to be as much about selling yourself as it is about putting somebody else down, because I think the one thing that is true is people are really tired of politics as usual, and I think they're really tired of negative ads.
All right, Rick, appreciate your analysis as always. Great job again tonight. Thanks for your time. Let's pop on back over to Abdul El-Sayed and see how this press conference and this scrum is going. Ms. Skeek around the side.
Have you had any conversations with Mallory since she dropped out? And what is your approach to that, and kind of where does that stand right now?
I have a lot of respect for anybody who's going to engage in the democratic process. This is really hard to do, particularly hard to do with young kids. I got an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I know her daughter Noah is 5. That's really tough. And I've been there before. I ran a really tough primary, and I lost. And so, you know, I wanted her to know that I appreciated how she ran her race. I wanted her to know that I believe she's super talented and I look forward to what she does in politics next. And I wanted her to know that I was grateful to have shared the campaign trail with her. And I thought she made this campaign and our race that much better. And I wanted her to know that just from human to human. Now, when it comes to, you know, where potential Mallory supporters go, Mallory was clear that she wanted to reject the power of corporate money and AIPAC money and Chuck Schumer in our politics. I want to reject the power of corporate money, AIPAC money, and Chuck Schumer in our politics. And so I hope that folks who are inspired by her are going to be as inspired by our movement, because at the end of the day, if we allow Chuck Schumer or AIPAC to come in here and try and dictate to us what our politics should look like, I think we all lose.
Did she say she might endorse in the race?
No, I think she's still trying to figure out what happens next. Obviously, you know, for us right now, we're a lot more focused on just running our race. Obviously, we'd welcome her support, but you know, that's a decision for her to make in the long term.
Abdul, why do you think that some...
Okay, some of the comments there from Abdul El-Sayed, and I'm going to truck across the room again here and try to give Congresswoman Stevens some equal time. Is she still taking questions?
In the Black community, I'm proud to have earned the support I have thus far, but I'm taking this all the way to the polls, and we are going to stop Trump. Yeah.
Rep. Stevens, I just asked this to Abdul about the regulation of AI. Now, it seems to be a pretty bipartisan issue. Do you see that as something that can unite Michiganders? And if so, how do you set yourself apart from your potential opponent on the Republican side?
Well, we want to beat China. And how I set myself apart from both of my opponents is that I actually have results on getting bipartisan AI legislation done. And in terms of the way in which we look to regulate and the way in which we look to stand up, we've got to make sure that the voices of people are at the table. Look, this is about our kids. So when we talk about what's going on with social media and very minimal regulation there, when we talk about the mass wealth concentration that's going on, that's not appropriate and right. And we want to have the guardrails be through open, free market democracies such as ours. We don't want to be playing by China's rules. So we've got to have leadership, and we've got to have vision, and we've got to have the commitment to do the job at hand, which is me.
So to be fair, you're in favor of data centers.
Okay, I want to swing back over here now, and I want to talk to News Nation correspondent. Where did I lost him? Oh, he's over here. All right, a little chaotic here. Chris.
Yes.
Brian Sterling.
Brian.
Chris Steyerwalt is with News Nation.
True.
You are also a political analyst. You've watched a lot of these races.
True.
Size this one up from the outside for us.
Well, look, the Democratic Party is at an inflection point. And the reason so many national people are here, and the reason that there's now I'm here because the Hill Sunday airs on so many on your station in so many places, and I love you for that. But so many national people are here because this has ended up being the inflection point for Democrats in this primary year. So basically, after the Bernie Sanders-backed candidates did so well in New York, the Mamdani candidates did so well in New York, it was sort of a split decision because you can point to a lot of places. You can look at Iowa, you can look at New Jersey, elsewhere, and say, hey, the moderate, the mainstream Democratic Party is still able to get electable candidates into position. And then in Colorado last week, very noteworthy, 30-year incumbent Diana DeJette loses in her primary. This creates the concern for Democrats. I can tell you Democrats in Washington are watching this race because if they cannot get Haley Stevens through, then they have a much more open question about can they control the Senate, can they actually win the Senate, and also are they having their own Tea Party moment. I was around in 2010 watching Republicans who reminded me a lot of Dr. El-Sayed as they were overtaking their party, and they succeeded. They succeeded. Donald Trump is president today because of the insurgency that overtook the Republican Party. Is the same thing happening to Democrats? What are the implications for the future? That's all on the ballot in Michigan, so that's why we're here.
Now, great insight. I asked Rick Albin this. I guess I'll put you on the spot as well. Who do you think Mike Rogers wants to run against?
Oh, well, El-Sayed, but Mike Rogers may be wrong, right? That's the thing, is that you don't know. Hillary Clinton preferred Donald Trump. She was wrong. But yeah, obviously the Republicans believe that El-Sayed is easier to beat. Rogers ran well in 24, came close. There's no reason to think that he if candidate. He's as good as we're going to do in Michigan. If you look at your gubernatorial election, you can see having a mainstream, broadly acceptable candidate with an electoral history was not a guarantee. So Mike Rogers is as good as Republicans are going to do. Republicans think it's El-Sayed, that he's the one that they want. Who knows? People are wrong, but I mean, obviously that's why Bernie Moreno has come in on El-Sayed's behalf, and that's why the money has come in on his behalf, because Republicans think he's easier to beat.
All right, Chris, we appreciate your insight.
You.
Thanks for coming by. Yep. All right, that's all the time we have for you at this point. We want to cut you loose, but we want to remind you again, we've got another debate on Thursday night. The Republican candidates for governor in the state will be in this room, and we're going to do this all over again. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of a flavor of how these campaigns work and some of the questions that they face from the national media, of which they're paying a lot of attention to this race here in West Michigan. That's going to do it for us here on The Plus. Again, look for us a little bit later tonight on air, 10 and 11. Of course, we'll have much more later this week on Debate Week in Michigan.